Hey, this is Joel Baker with American Giants. I thought I'd bring you along for a fun weekend. I am back in Atlanta at the American Giants Museum. I flew into Charleston and picked up a big boy I thought would be a good addition for the museum. And so we'll talk a little bit about its history and check out the museum. And then I'm also going to a convention down in Edwardsville. So we'll check that out as well. So I'm in here with Jared, and he's helping me out because we got to get the big boy off the truck and into the museum. And you notice that they've got all the display heads up here, so you can't open the garage door. So we just put that on top of the garage door quickly, and I think we can barely slide him under here and get him inside. Let's see how it goes. Well, that's pretty cool. We got him inside. Now the American Giants Museum has a big boy. And this guy is out of Charleston, South Carolina. He's an original. That is not original paint, though. It's painted right over the original, so they gave it a touch-up. So eventually we'll probably do a restoration on him, but right now he's perfectly good enough in his vintage condition to be featured here. And we'll talk a little bit about the connections of history to international fiberglass. Bob's Big Boy began as Bob's Pantry in 1936 and was created by Bob Wyan in Glendale, California. The restaurant soon became known as Bob's Big Boy or Bob's. Benny Washam came up with the first Big Boy sketch in 1937, and in 1955, Wyan hired Manfred Bernard to create a new public image for Big Boy. Manfred considered the original logo by Washam to be sloppy with a moronic expression. A new icon was made, which is the iconic figure that the statues were made from. Wyan licensed two operators in the East to sell his Big Boy hamburger. Frisch's Big Boy in Cincinnati, and Eaton Park Big Boy in Pittsburgh, thus procuring and maintaining a national landmark. In the 1950s, a third licensee, Shoney's Big Boy, took place in the southern states, including South Carolina. The franchisees were required to sell the Big Boy hamburger and use their own name with Big Boy. The statues were made by a number of different companies over the years. One of the earliest was International Fiberglass in Venice, California. Although owner Steve Dashew does not recall ever making the iconic Big Boy, original advertising shows the Big Boys at International Fiberglass, and memories from former workers recall the Burger Boy as well as the molds being stored there. Washam's icon was turned into a fiberglass figure by artist and sculptor Michael McCracken, who created the shorter 3-foot versions. It is unknown who sculpted the larger, more common 6-foot version. It is believed that International Fiberglass did a limited run on these statues, which may be why Dashew does not recall the giant, and the last one would have been made around 1967. The molds were shipped to another company that continued production. By the mid-'80s, the Shoney's franchise in the Carolinas did not want to pay the fees required to use the Big Boy name. Anthony Rosillo, a local from Charleston, worked for the Shoney's just prior to this and was still good friends with the regional manager when the Big Boy was dropped from the name. Anthony asked his manager friend if he could have one of the statues that they had removed locally, and was given permission to get the one from the Charleston-Savannah Highway location. He wanted the statue so he could give it to his younger sister. As a child, his sister had always hugged the statue when they had gone there to eat, and he felt it would be a fitting gift. So that was a quick drop-off. I wanted to get him secure in the museum. Now I'm going to head down to the Miles of Possibilities conference in Edwardsville and check that out. I'm going to be speaking tomorrow, so I'm really excited about that. And then back up here for the weekend to hang out with visitors and a couple Muffler Man collectors. And now we're at the Miles of Possibilities conference in Edwardsville, Illinois. It's been fantastic to be here. I got here yesterday after dropping off the big boy at the museum, and so now I'm here early in the morning, and we are getting everything hooked up and plugged in for my presentation, which I'm number 2 today. So everything's working. I haven't given a talk in a little bit, and this is definitely an updated one. So I'll try to make this available for you also shortly, so you can also watch it. But I've got a lot of new figures and pictures, and instead of just going over the history, I'm going over a lot more recent stuff with Muffler Men. But it's fantastic to be here in this amazing location. Come along, enjoy the Miles of Possibilities conference with me. We'll get some video here, a little behind the scenes, and then I'll also get this presentation up for you as well in another video. Now it's more giant fun here. I'm actually driving up to Motorheads because I really want to see. I talked a lot about Mark Klein and you know the other companies that are making and repairing Muffler Men. I talked about Re-Giant, talked about Mark Klein, and so and the different unique builds that these guys can do. And so we're going to go up here to Motorheads and see the Big John that has gone up here recently, and I've never been there before. So actually a few new Muffler Men for me on this trip. I want to see Lumi, I want to see the Big John, and I want to go up to Bloomington. I've never seen Carl, and he's well photographed and well known, and I've just never been there. And then of course spend some time for the last 2 days that the museum is open, and they've actually shut it down for the year. There's no more volunteers this late in the season, so I'm going to be the volunteer for the last 2 days this weekend. Bill Thomas said, "Well, Joel, if you volunteer, then it can be open." And I was like, "Absolutely, that'll be fun." A lot of people think I live here, and that they come to the museum and they're going to see me, or I live nearby, but that's not the case. I live in Colorado. So this is the another Big John. This is the first full-size remake Big John that exists. Mark Klein originally. This is actually a really cool story. When I did the sale for Magic Forest, and I got all those helped Magic Forest sell all of those giants. Jack Gillette, the owner, told me about this story where he got the molds to the Big John, and then he took them through Tennessee on his way home to pick up some other stuff. And he got so much stuff in Tennessee that he decided to offload the Big John molds so he could carry all the other stuff home. And he never went back and got them. And he told me that they were laying in the woods at this piece of property. And so he arranged that we could go down there. Michael went and got it and picked all those molds up out of the woods. They'd been there, I don't know, 40 years, and trees were growing up through them and all this stuff. And it was absolutely cool to get those molds, and we got them up to Mark. And I traded Mark for them for some stuff I needed. I think the heads that are at the museum. And so Mark has them now. So he's made 2 Big Johns from those molds. One of them is full size here, with a different arm position, and then the other one is in Kansas, Hutchinson, Kansas, and it's waist up. So 2 Big Johns and then a couple heads. I actually have a head I bought for the museum for display. I haven't put it up yet, but this guy is super cool. Different arm position. That's a Mark Klein thing. They wanted it to hold this massive Motorheads sign. And then somebody Mark knows in Virginia actually made the gas pumps. And he was an artist, did a lot of big stuff, and this was his last job. He passed away right at the end of doing these gas pumps. So they're kind of a memorial, if you will, in a way for him. So that's what the inside looks like. Inside is, of course, the restaurant and all the food, but Ron's also made a total museum in there with all kinds of old cars and signs all over the place. I got a chance to meet Ron. This is Big Ron, so it's named after the owner of this place. But super nice guy. He definitely recognized my face, and I was like, well, if you're into Giants and you were shopping around for one, you probably watched one of my videos. But really nice guy. I got to hang out with him a little bit and talk to him. And of course, our mutual friend is Mark Klein, who made this guy, so we had plenty to talk about. But definitely give this place a chance to come down and visit the Big John, get some pictures, and then enjoy the awesome food in there and environment on the inside. So while I'm up here at the American Giants Museum, I just thought it would be really cool to give you a tour. Not everybody is able to make it to Central Illinois, Atlanta, Illinois, where the American Giants Museum is. So this is the outside of the museum. The statue faces directly over to the Bunyan hot dog guy that you see there, and in the museum like faces exactly that over that direction. And then we've got the Texaco Big Friend that went up in May. We did the American Giants Museum to look like a Texaco station with the big bay doors. I just actually closed it up here, but that's the American Giants Museum with the pumps there. And then around to the side, you've got the Texaco banjo sign, which I bought from my friend Lee Woods. Thank you, Lee. That really adds to the decor of the place. And then over here, I've got the Snurd that came from the wagon wheel in Ohio. And as you can see on the ground over here, we've got all these extra pedestals or platforms, and these are for more Giants when they arrive. Okay, so now we're inside the American Giants Museum, and right when you come in the door, the first thing you're going to do is probably be greeted by one of the many volunteers. Today is my friend Mike Curtis, who's not a normal volunteer here, but he's been hanging out and helping me today. And you'll sign a guest book. They have brochures and things for other things you can do here in town. Of course, we're always grateful for donations. The museum is free, but you're welcome to make a donation if you can. The next thing that you're going to run into in the American Giants Museum is this case. And this case is really full of everything I've collected over the years that has to do with Muffler Men and Giants. I have, there's a catalog from International Fiberglass in there. A lot of my vintage postcards and pictures that I found on eBay are in here. My favorite thing in here is the Texaco Big Friend original eye bolts that went in his shoulders from the Texaco Big Friend that's now outside the museum that you saw. These, the original bolts, during restoration, we took them off, and these are in the display case for you to see, as well as a lot of stuff I've collected from the Lumberjack Cafe, which had postcards and cups and the very first Muffler Man ever made. As we go along here, one thing that people notice right away is going to be the Esso Tiger, and that has kind of got his own little exhibit right here. And the Esso Tiger came out of New York. I don't know what station he was originally at, but he is an original Esso Tiger. And below him, you can see that there's all kinds of historical information and pictures there of what they look like when they were used. Next, we have a tomahawk that's actually down here on this display, and this is from the burned out American Indian Brave tomahawk version, which is a very rare version that had this tomahawk, everything just about burned except part of his legs. And this tomahawk, which was found in the rubble by me and restored by Mark Klein. And you can read more about that on the plaque. When we opened this museum, we didn't have a Uniroyal gal, so I thought it would be cool to include a foot of her so you could kind of see what one looks like. But now they have Lumi just down the street, who's a full Uniroyal gal that you can see just a short walk from here. So I'm not sure this foot has a purpose here anymore, and maybe we can use this place for something else that I have in my collection. But right now, that's what's here. And you can read a little bit about the Uniroyal history. Behind me is an extremely detailed wall of information on the Texaco Big Friend and the history of international fiberglass. And some people have told me, Joel, people are just not going to take the time to read all these details. But for those of you who like to geek out on the history like I do, this is for you. And I'm really glad it's here, and Bill Thomas did a fantastic job of taking all of my research and translating it into a wall that you can read about the history of the Texaco Big Friend outside. As you come around here, this is kind of part of that Texaco exhibit, showing a still shot of the original Texaco commercial that was promoting the Big Friend service. And there's an old TV here to kind of give you kind of an idea of what that would have felt and looked like back in the day. As we swing around here, there's a little bit about International Fiberglass in this section, including their original catalog, and then a little placard about me. And I basically am the loaner of the statues to the museum. And so that has a little bit of my information. This is the newest addition to the museum. Super cool. I think one of the comments that the volunteers who work here told me the most is that everybody comes in here and says, "Where is your big boy?" So I got a big boy in Oregon a few years ago, and it needed a lot of work. It was missing this base, this square base at the bottom, and it was missing the burger on the plate. But it was at Regiant Restorations, and it was on their list to do. But that does take a while, and so we were hoping there was a way to get it done quicker. And this guy popped up in Charleston, South Carolina on Marketplace. I just happened to see it a few weeks ago, and I have a buddy who lives there, and he went and bought it for me and stored it in his garage. And so this weekend, as you know from watching this video, I started out in Charleston and picked this guy up and brought him here. So that has been really fun to actually see him, and we've had 2 days now of visitors that have come in here, and I can tell you by watching, by default, this is the photo op. So if you're at the American Giants Museum, this is a great place to take pictures. He's kind of eye level with all of us. And I don't think this is his original coat of paint, so eventually we'll probably restore him, but I think he's a pretty cool addition. This guy, in my world, is one of the coolest things in the museum, but he's not really well known or popular because a lot of people just don't know what he is, but he was a traffic stopper. He's like a 12-foot man made by International Fiberglass, and that arm actually used to wave like this, and there was motor and gears that's probably still inside him. One day I hope to restore this guy, and then we can actually see how all that works, and we can get him waving again. I think that would really be really cool to put a switch here where kids or adults can flip the switch and see the hand wave. But that's a traffic stopper. They made him to advertise for many different companies. DX Gas used them, Mobil used them, Exxon used them. They were very versatile, and they actually made a few different kinds. They didn't just make gas guys, they made businessmen, they made a scientist, they made a chef. They're very hard to find. There's only a few of these left. So I think this is a really cool addition to the museum. You'll notice up over my head here, I've got a number of large heads. These are not original. These are recreations from the original molds or from original statues that Mark Klein has made molds of. And this is a waving giant. So this would be the face that should have been on all the Glenn Gould statues down in Texas. Super rare face there. I'm glad we have one of them in the museum. We have a Uniroyal gal head up above me here, and then over there in the corner above Mike, you'll see a snurd head. Much like the snurd outside the museum, but that snurd was modified. That straw hat was cut to look like a ball cap, and he was modified a bit. And then he still painted the way that he would have been at the Wagon Wheel Bar in Madison, Ohio. And then over here we have the A&W family. I've only got the baby and the mama, and I hope to find the rest of them soon. But a lot of people don't know about these, and they stood across the country at A&W places, often on the roof or awning of the restaurants. And these are both in vintage condition. This mama came out of Pennsylvania near Pittsburgh, and this baby came out of Port Orchard, Washington. So these guys were scattered all over the place. And then that's the museum. You can see the wide shot there. We have a bathroom here for your convenience when you arrive, but I just wanted to give you a quick tour of the American Giants Museum.